3 days ago, there was a major military operation within Venezuela that resulted in the capture of Nicolas Maduro and his wife straight from their home in the capital of Venezuela. And this is a major, major U.S. operation. An incredibly successful one, too. It only lasted 3 hours. 3 hours. In and out. And there was 0 U.S. casualties. In comparison to, I believe, like 37 from the Venezuelan security. That shows how incredible, like absolutely superior the U.S. is in terms of being able to pull off operations like this. And, oh my gosh, this has so many implications on what's going to happen in the future. And there's also a lot of fighting within America and arguing over whether this was legal and whether this was actually good for the U.S. and what the U.S. might do in the future in relation to Venezuela. So, first I'll go over the legal implications and whether it is allowed by the U.S. Constitution and whether it's available. Next, I'll actually go over what the future implications of it of this action is. First of all, is it legal? So, under constitutional law, you get the U.S. U.S. president has the powers of the U.S. military, the supreme commander, and so he has the ability to use the military how he wants. However, Congress does have the ability to declare war, and decide when the U.S. is going to war. Now, there's some level of conflict there between the two, because once the U.S. has, since the U.S. president is in charge of the U.S. military, he has the ability to take actions and actually use the military. Yet with Congress limiting it, he might not be able to do military actions like bombing Iran and stuff like that. Yet, to clarify this, the Congress has passed the War Powers Act that allows the U.S. president to take military actions up to 60 days in a nation without Congress having to act. And that's basically what the president's done in the past. He's done it under pretty much every other president. Obama with the airstrikes. There was Iraq, and then U.S. Trump also used it against Iran when he took out the nuclear facilities. So, under that act, Trump's action here is constitutionally viable, as is totally constitutionally viable. Because again, it was under 60 days. In fact, it was only 3 hours. So, incredible. It was allowed. Additionally, it was only troops on the ground for like 30 minutes. So, it was allowed under that act. So, it's constitutionally, it's allowed constitutionally. Now, the left continues to argue that it violates international law. Now, international law does not make any sense. First of all, who's going to enforce international law? That would be the UN. They don't have a military. So it doesn't make sense. Additionally, no international law is not enforced. Just look at what happened with Russia and Ukraine. We didn't invade Russia after violating international law when invading there. There's so many other nations that violate international law, it doesn't really matter. So under that level there, it's also not allowed. And it doesn't really matter. Because international law, it's not real. So overall, the legality of this, in terms of domestic, which is what's important, is there. Now, there are debates on whether it is or is not, but it's clearly there. Previous presidents have used this. They used it in Ukraine. They used it Iraq. They used it when doing regime change in other nations. You also have it with the capturing of Panama's president after he was also charged with drug trafficking. So, in my opinion, this is incredibly legal. Now, onto the implications afterwards, both domestic and foreign, there are many, 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 many implications. So first, was this actually a good move by Trump? In my opinion, it's a yes. First of all, Maduro has not really cooperated with us in the past. He hasn't stopped the drugs. He hasn't allowed U.S. companies back in for oil, and he's clearly been anti-U.S. Now, capturing him might result in a change in power within Venezuela, and that might result in a better move, in a better situation from the Venezuelan state. Now, the question is, who will replace Maduro? Right now, it seems like it is the vice president, which was really close with Maduro and practically the same ideology. This is actually not a great situation in terms of the U.S. in terms of who's going to replace him, because she has been anti-U.S. she is anti-U.S. and she's been posturing to continually continue that policy of being anti-U.S. And that's not good for the U.S. It's not good for our interest in both oil, limiting drugs, and limiting China and Russia's position within Venezuela. In fact, she also said that they need to that Maduro is still the rightful president and stuff like that. So, question is there: is she actually going to be someone that's more pro-U.S.? I think no, not really. But there is a chance that she might be more soft and more susceptible to threats. Additionally, with the fact of this U.S. operation of capturing Maduro, this means that people like her and other leaders within the Venezuelan regime realize that the U.S. can really just do whatever they want and really just go into the nation and easily capture and kill whoever's in charge. So, this has probably threatened her, and will probably threaten future leaders, both military and civilian leaders that are in power. So, this means that they're probably more likely to be susceptible to U.S. pressuring them to end the production of drugs and allow U.S. Oil companies back in. Now, if she doesn't actually allow the U.S. to solve those two issues, Trump might try a different strategy for ending the regime. He might, instead of capturing them, capturing the leaders in the future, including the vice president, he might end up doing what Israel did in a lot of cases, which was decapitate the military, take out military leaders. So airstrikes, targeting specific leaders, that could do it. Additionally, right now, that's what it could do. But right now, we don't entirely know if the vice president will actually end up having complete control of the state within Venezuela. I think it is most likely yes, simply because Trump hasn't taken out any of the leadership, underlying leadership that supports her and Maduro. So, another theory with this, with the capturing of Maduro, is that Maduro actually let himself be captured, or allowed himself to be captured and taken to the U.S. because he already sensed the weakness within his own regime, and he already realized that someone under him might betray him. Another thing is that there's a theory that it was like a soft a coup basically, and people and the vice president could have actually been working with the U.S., but is actually showing an anti-U.S. stance publicly just so she isn't suspected. That could be it. But in the long run, with this, I think with this change in leadership, it could be good. It could result in the same people still controlling the state. However, it does weaken the state, and it makes it more likely for popular protests to stand up. We've seen protests in support of it in foreign nations like Chile, Argentina, U.S., and protests in support, not protests, more like celebrations of Maduro being removed. Additionally, even in Venezuela, even though it's more subdued because of threat of military action by the leadership, we still have seen anti-Maduro stuff within Venezuela. We saw a taking down of a major thing that we've seen is some levels of protest, although small, in celebrations of the Venezuelan people on like Twitter and other things like that, /X. But we've also seen the removal of a portrait within Venezuela. So we're also seeing that there's a large portion of the population there that does support a popular uprising against the government. The question is, will they actually be able to do that? And the more I think the U.S. actually does take out top military leadership, the more likely that's supposed to be. So if this change of regime and the capture of Maduro doesn't actually do anything, the next strategy U.S. could do is just bombing the heck out of all the military leadership. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that could take out all the leadership. It could do what's happening in Iran right now, where practically there's a whole bunch of protest, and due to the weakened state, that those protests are being successful. Do something like that. Now, the only issue I see with that is if you take out the current leadership, it might actually result in the cartels taking over. With the cartels taking over, and that would be even worse for the U.S. Simply because, we don't want more drugs flowing into the U.S. So the state of this regime and the state of Venezuela is very iffy right now, and if it doesn't really, it will take time to see what comes of this. Hopefully, I think it's going to be good. I think in the long run, I do think it's going to be good. And if Trump does continue to do military actions that suppress Venezuela, the Venezuelan regime that's anti-U.S., then this overall is going to be a good position, good decision for America. Hopefully, it works out, and I think it will. But anyway, we'll have to wait and see. So I'll leave it off there, and thanks everyone for watching. Remember to share this with someone you know, and I'll see you next time.